All right, kids, here we go. Topic 4.6, internal boundaries, aka gerrymandering. We're going to go over this real quick in reference to the simulation that you did in class. So, from the standard, if you can walk away understanding what redistricting means and then what actual gerrymandering is, you'll be in good shape. Okay, so internal boundaries, just like there are international boundaries, we actually have boundaries within our states. And obviously, we use those for a variety of reasons for census tracking, for local government, and in the case we're going to talk about today is for voting districts. Okay, so these internal boundaries form these voting districts, and as you guys saw in the simulation, depending on how the lines are drawn in those voting districts, can truly have an impact on what political party maybe wins or doesn't win in a certain election. All right, so the key terms you guys need to know here is, again, a voting district, which is a geographic area that basically groups an amount of people together to vote. Obviously, in a perfect world, it would just be very geometric, like everybody in this rectangle votes for the person for District 1. Everyone in this rectangle votes for District 2. But again, as you guys saw in your simulation, as you are starting to manipulate the borders, you can actually really change the outcome of elections. Scale matters here. So what we're talking about here is how zoomed in on the information you are. The district scale, and we're not talking school district, this is voting districts, but kind of the same concept. Smaller geographic areas, there will be, several within a state. Colorado has 7 voting districts, for example. So we can zoom into the district level, then we zoom out to the state level as a whole, and then of course we can zoom out to the entire country at that scale. All right, so again, redistricting. Internal political boundaries are redrawn after a census, which determine voting districts for legislatures. Remember, in a perfect system, each of these redistricted boundaries has the same amount of people roughly as the neighboring one. So for example, you guys can see on this little digital map that's happening here, keep an eye on the red. Even though the size of the geographic area of the red shrinks in the new system, that means they probably just had a lot of urban growth in that area, so they are densely populated. And they still have roughly the same amount of people as in the big lime green one, which doesn't change size too much. So again, they're supposed to have the same amount. That's why in the simulation, when you guys redrew your boundaries, you had to keep the same amount of beads roughly in each district. Okay, enter gerrymandering. So this is when there was actual manipulation to get a majority party in power. And again, you guys were asked to do this when I told you to pick which color are you backing, red, white, or blue, and then redraw the lines to get them to win. And you guys, ended up drawing these kind of crazy, funky patterns that didn't geographically make any sense, but you guys were manipulating what ended up in those boundaries. All right, here's an example. United States of America, we have the House of Representatives. We know that is based on the population of each state. So every year that census happens, and they basically will recalculate if a state, what happened to a state's population. Interesting fact, the number 435 of how many House reps we have has never changed. They just reshuffle them around. So I'm curious, as our population has obviously exploded since the, Constitution was written, if they would ever go, hey, maybe we need more than 435. But I digress. So every 10 years, they'll get those numbers and then they'll go, okay, what states lost population, what states gained population, and how do we need to adjust? So, for example, Colorado is gaining population. I think the last 2 censi, we have actually gained a House representative, and that means they've taken it away from a state that's maybe losing population. Okay, so here we go, case in point. So you guys can see Colorado, Texas, California, Nevada, Arizona, Florida, Georgia, South Carolina, or North Carolina, excuse me, they've all gained seats over the last couple of census, and then the red states are ones that they've actually taken population out of. Yellow means that they've maintained their same amount. Okay, so then once these numbers are in place, they redistrict those political boundaries, and again, they'll say, okay, if you live in, if I live where the arrow is in this, and let's say that's District 1, then I would only get to vote for District 1 representatives. Okay. Obviously, we know the gerrymandering happens when the people who draw the lines are kind of shady and they get an idea of, oh, well, here's a Republican block of voters or here's a Democrat block of voters, and then they like regroup. And you guys saw yesterday, if you have 5 districts, it only takes the majority to win. So 3 out of the 5. So you might end up gerrymandering 2 heavily like blue Democrat districts, but as long as you can get those other 3 to have more red, you're good to go. All right. Cracking, packing, those are different methods to give your party the advantage. So basically, they pack all the same color, if you will, into one area. Cracking, they might actually draw the line straight down the middle of a previous district to split those beads or whatever up. And then you have like what are called major minority districts. Minorities are the majority voters in a district. So again, we talked about in class, there is a racial bias that happens here. African Americans tend to vote Democrat, Hispanics tend to vote Democrat, white tend to vote Republican. And so that those methods are used to determine this. Get a chance, scan the QR code. Great video that gives you a little bit more information on this. All right. Another video, definitely worth watching. It's a nice little TED Talk. It's 4 minutes long. You guys will definitely want to watch this TED Talk to just give you a little bit more information. Okay, let's practice. All right. Maryland's 3rd congressional district. In the redistricting that occurred in 2012, voters in Maryland approved a redrawn 3rd congressional district as shown on the map above. So the dark gray. A geospatial analysis firm named it the least compact district in the nation. All right. So the question you guys have is the choices you guys have down here, or excuse me, this is an FRQ response. So what happened? A, they were gerrymandered. B, the census was used every 10 years and determines population, and therefore the state legislature gets to redraw the lines. And yes, they are supposed to ask for voter approval on this, but think about, does average Joe voter understand, if they looked at a map, would they be like, oh God, that's gerrymandered, unless they've known what gerrymandering is? So most times people just go, yep, cool, we trust them, moving on. Okay, and then here's some other key terms that have to go with it. Again, you can go in and pause on this and fill this out a little better, okay? All right, what's our takeaway here? Internal boundaries often form these voting districts that are affected by redistricting. Redistricting is the like legal process of, hey, this place got new population, this place lost population, we have to adjust for the balance. Gerrymandering is when there is clear motivation of like, oh, weird, they grouped this like random set of beads up here to be with these guys so they can form like a voting block or something like that. Okay. Again, you guys need to understand at the local level, the state level, and the national level, how this is obviously impacted differently. This is one of those things that affects local politics, but that local politics has a trickle effect into the global or to like the federal level of politics. Okay. So that was it, you guys. You are awesome and have a great rest of the day.